to hire additional staff to be able to reduce classroom sizes too. So that is something that, we've never done before. All of our 301 monies go strictly to teachers. We don't utilize it. We don't count with that money for our budget, for salaries of any nature. So that is something that we may have to look at. But in many of our schools, the problem right now is the unavailability of extra classroom space. And, we've mentioned that before. At the high school, we had to rent portables or, lease portables. And that's what we've had to do in the last couple of years. Now with DHS expanding, and hopefully when it gets completed, we have to determine what is our plan for those portables. Is it maybe that Stevenson needs them or that Clausen needs them? Because Clausen, I tell you, they don't have any more space. Joe Carlson doesn't have any more space. Stevenson doesn't have any more space. The only school that may have a couple classrooms vacant is Ferris, and Sarah Marley, maybe one classroom. So it is a lot of factors that come into play, but definitely enrollment is the number one factor that we look at with data.
I think the bottom line is, how can we best service our students?
Yes.
And we have to keep that focus. Now, if it needs finding more space, then we're going to have to find it, because that would be my impetus. How do you best serve the students?
Yes.
Absolutely, yeah.
Just want to comment on this. The 301 money, you're going to try and see if you do it the way other districts doing, and keep some of that for, in case you need it for extra teachers and so forth. If you don't use it, per se, then what do you do with that reserve that you had that you didn't use?
Well, it's not that it's a reserve. So the 301 monies are designated towards, the classroom site fund. And under the classroom site fund is all going towards teacher, let's say bonus pay, or with other factors such as, professional development, classroom size reduction. So right now, if we don't utilize any of that, so it all goes 100% towards the purpose that we intended for. So it's not like we have a reserve, but let's say we were to find ourselves in the need to hire additional teachers to reduce classroom sizes, we can utilize 301 classroom site funds that are given to us for that purpose. So if we get, let's say $1 million in 301 monies, and it all goes to teachers, we can determine based on the need at the district, hire 3 additional teachers that, let's say, couldn't be sustained and paid for by our M&O budget. We would take those monies to pay for those 3 classroom salaries. So instead of $1 million towards the teachers, they'd get, $980,000, let's say, just. So it's not like we have a reserve, but,
Okay.
It's that money that can be utilized for those purposes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Smith?
And,
I don't really have any questions. After looking over the numbers, there wasn't any surprises on any of the stuff, so.
do you remember what the formula, 20, 40, 20 or something like that for the 301?
It
I'm
was
not-
40,
I'm not
40,
remembering.
20,
Yeah, 40,
but at
40,
this
20.
point,
It's all-
all combined in one.
Okay.
There's no specifics. We internally, what we do is just separate that 40% that is for performance, and that's paid separately from the regular now 301 monies. But, the state just considers just one pot, and we can determine the percentages if we need to.
Okay.
For example, this year alone, since we're talking about the budget in 301, the next payout going out towards our teachers and our qualifying staff members is this coming next pay.
This Friday
This Friday. So
and
this
the following.
Friday, they're going to see an additional portion of that 301. And Ms. Barcelo, how much is the amount?
5,250 all combined.
About 5,250. They already got one portion of it in December, and then there's a second performance payout going out, and that is estimated at about
Another 50.
Another 5,000?
5,100, yeah.
So they're getting about 10,000
this month.
And
This month
November,
alone.
they got 30-some hundred, so a total of 13,000 that went to the teachers this year just for 301 monies. and counselors and
Members of the
whoever.
board, any other questions or comments regarding that? Just comment a little bit about the 7% increase that the legislature, I think they passed it yesterday on the budget. And also, if you would comment a little bit about your professional organizations and whatever the conversation and discussion is taking place regarding the voucher, that they may have, that there's a fear that the way the vouchers are going, of course, there's no specifics yet, is that it's going to be overwhelmingly expensive.
Right.
And just professionally and from your professional organizations and what they're saying, comment a little bit about that because it's part of the total picture.
Yes, absolutely. And talking about vouchers, and again, the budget has been approved by legislature, so it's on the governor's desk for signature. Yes, they talk about that 7%, but the only increase we're getting by formula, it seems like it's going to be 2.9%. Okay, that's what is the base level for per student is gonna increase. The rest is about that additional money that they're talking about. They said we infuse to the schools, but again, we have no specifics on how we can spend it or is it going to be sustainable or not.
Or how it's gonna be distributed.
How is it going to be distributed? Exactly. The other one is the voucher. The vouchers, as you know, it's increasing tremendously. The number of voucher students in the state already surpassed Mesa Unified School District, so now we're over 55,000 kids in vouchers. And again, the legislature, and they approve an increase on the voucher, which is, again, taking a big toll on the budget. There's a few organizations, of course, talking about that and opposing it, but now it says at this point, at least give us put a cap on it. Don't just randomly select how much you're going to increase it. Do it, gradually or by percentages. But again, these are just conversations that nothing has happened. The legislature just meets and decides how much they're going to increase it. So again, we're just waiting. We're just waiting to see what all of these things are going to affect us. For sure, like I said, it's an increase of 2.9% of the base. That's what we can count now as a done deal. The rest, the remaining 4.1, it's up in the air. Again, once the money comes, and I can tell you this is how much Douglas Unified is getting out of those $300 million, then the board is going to have to decide how to distribute those on their parameters and what they're saying that this money is going to be earmarked for. So we haven't heard, again, the specifics from ASBO, the School Business Officials Organization, to go forward. I'm assuming they're just waiting for that budget to be signed by the governor and then just start working on the numbers, on the specifics.
And then just since we're talking about the budget quickly, what does the tax rate look like for next year based on what we're going to?
Right. Once those numbers are in, then we're going to have to determine our budget, and then we determine the property tax. I honestly don't foresee an increase on the property tax. As you know, we have been decreasing little by little. Probably, potentially, there's going to be a little increase levy for adjacent ways. As you know, I'm using whatever I have now, which is roughly $200,000 in adjacent ways for the new construction of the high school, which is for sidewalks, egress and ingress for emergency vehicles and all that. So that's how I can use that money. So in order for me to get more adjacent ways, we have to levy the secondary property tax. But again, it's not going to be a huge impact on the taxpayers this coming year.
And then quickly, those portables that you talked about at the high school, the district doesn't own those.
No, currently they're under lease.
Go ahead.
They're currently under lease with the potential of purchase if needed at the end of the lease. Right now they're being utilized. One of the portables is 2 big classrooms and the other one is labs. There's 2, I believe, chemistry labs. Not sure if they're being utilized or not. But again, if the need is there, then we can move them and utilize them somewhere else if we need to.
Ms. Samaniego mentioned that a minute ago.
Yep.
So if you had to move those from the high school, would the state do that for us, or would the district had to realize that cost?
Correct. The district is going to have to take on that cost. One of the things that, for your knowledge, is the School Facilities Board doesn't agree with portables. So portables are dead square footage on a way that if there needs some repairs, they're not going to touch them at all. If there's need to move them, they're not going to touch them. So again, if it's a portable, the School Facilities Board is not going to take part on that. So again, it's a quick solution for a lot of school districts in our same situation, but unfortunately, that's one of the downsides, that we take on the cost of renovations or moving and all that stuff.
Well, since we're on that subject, because it's important, and it has to do with the budget, because it's something we'd have to realize, if the district were to want to retain those for the reasons that the discussion was revolving around a minute ago, how much are you actually paying for those right now?
I believe it's 1,000. I don't have the exact amount, but it's like 1,000 a month.
Do those companies that lease those, are they favorable to, without going through the expense of retrieving them, are they favorable to selling them to the district?
Yes. This lease is actually done with that purpose, that at the end of the lease, we still have the option to purchase.
Right, because they don't like to come down here and get them.
Exactly.
So would it be something that this board should be thinking about, that at the end of, after we do all of the moving in 2050, when they finish the construction at the high school, would it be something that we would want to
Entertain it,
consider
yeah.
buying those?
Absolutely.
And you can negotiate with those people
Yeah.
the price on those, because they don't want to come down and get them.
No, absolutely.
And that historically, that's the way
Yes.
it is. That's the reason you see these all over the state, because
Correct.
they don't want to pick them up. So that's something that we may want to look into in the future.
In the near future.
And
Yes, sir.
without building on or adding on through an SFB-funded project due to an increase of enrollment, which we don't have right now, potentially, but in the future, if what we suspect is going to happen at the high school, and Mr. Lindemann's right, what about the elementary schools and the increase of middle school and elementary students, if more families come down once the border entry expands and all of this growth that we potentially may see, that may be a solution. So if SFB does not grant us or award us money to expand based on the increase of enrollment for our current existing schools, then that is going to have to be a solution, or the district then, funds an expansion of 2 classrooms or whatever. And fortunately, our school size, playground areas have room to expand.
Well, that leads right into something that's very, very important. And I think since we're talking about the budget and we're talking about the need for space and the expenditures and those kinds of things, the board needs to be aware about what's going on with A Avenue School right now. And considering what the superintendent just said regarding the expansion, and we're running out of spaces and all of these things, A Avenue School right now would play a major role in anything we do, as far as not only the budget, but as far as enrollment and attendance areas and those kinds of things. So the board needs to know that in the offing, that we're looking at a very serious situation at A Avenue School right now. And that's that the lease is coming to an end. However, and this is budgetary, and however, they're wanting to expedite and because of the situation they're having with the major expenditure they're gonna realize down there regarding the roof, that Chiricahua right now wants to talk to the district, and certainly it'll be the board, but regarding a major expenditure on the roof. And so we're gonna be deeply involved in that, but if we look at the enrollment, and we have an option at the end of that lease to buy that building back after that horrendous deal that was made by the district, whenever they did it, we'd have to buy that building back, but that's something that we'll talk about later.
Yes.
And, but it's all part of this whole discussion regarding the
Right.
budget.
You know, before we leave this, can I ask one more question? What did you say the reimbursement per student is now that we get? The per student?
The base.
Yeah, the base.
For this year was 4,775 per student. And again, as you know, every student weights differently,
Right.
elementary, middle school, and high school. I think the proposed, right now with that increase, it will be 4,900 and something. I don't have the specific, because again, I don't know the exact percentage of increase they're gonna approve. But it's around that. It's
And
gonna be
yet the
49.
voucher for a student
Yeah,
is
it's-
right now
Why,
at 7,000.
why is that 7,000?
1,000.
You know, I keep reading.
I
And
believe
it'll
it's
be
more than
increased.
7,000,
No, it is
but,
more.
yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Smith?
I do. Going back to the topic where you were talking about using mobiles and that kind of stuff in there. I wanted to bring up an option that you may not be aware of or consider. The Border Patrol station, as it was growing, the one up on Leslie Canyon, we outgrew that station something fierce, and we used a large number of trailers for classrooms, for other progress. When we set up camps, we used them. Those were all FEMA trailers. If you're not familiar with FEMA, every time there is some type of an emergency declared somewhere in the U.S., one of the first things they do is roll out brand-new trailers for the population to give them temporary housing. And once those emergencies are taken care of and they're declared, they give them away. We were getting these trailers from FEMA for nothing. And then could renovate them however we needed to do. So you were saying that you lease, you have, the monies that you put
Yeah.
into it. There might be an option, and that, like I says, it may be just something that you want to research, where you can get these trailers at either an extremely low cost or nothing. It might cost just somebody to go pick one
pick 'em
up
up.
and bring them down here. And then you can renovate them however you want to, for classrooms, for labs,
Offices,
for
yeah.
however. But I just wanted, like I said, that was one of the things that we did, and it might be an option that's available.
Good.
Thanks for
Thank you,
that
yeah.
info. We can certainly research that.
Yeah.
Okay, so the good news also is the fact that the tax rate, based on what all of the information you previously gave us, is going to be it's going to be static, right?
Right, correct.
And that's the good news. All right. So then we need a motion, Mr. Lindeman.
I move to approve the final revised district annual expenditure budget for fiscal year 2022, 2023.
Is there a second?
Second.
By Mr. Ramos. Members of the board, any discussion? Anything the administration wants to add regarding that? Anything at all? Sonia, anything you want to add about the budget? Anything that you want to point out or anything? You did a tremendous job. You've done a
Thank you.
tremendous job.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Sonia.
I
All
just
right.
explained it, but you did that already.
Thank you, Sonia.
I'll take it.
Thank you, yeah.
Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Burring?
Yes, and by the way, the administration needs a lot of credit for the way that they manage that budget, and we're going to recognize you for that, because, a lot of times people don't really understand that the management of that budget is
Extensive.
paramount to the running of this district. So we're fortunate that the district tax rate, as you just mentioned earlier, should stay static, about the same.
Stable.
And we're grateful for that. So we're thankful to the administration for monitoring that as well as you do. All right, item 2B, discussion action on the approval of classified food service summer hires and the funding source is 510 food service. Ms. Samaniego?
Yes, as presented, these are just our food service employees that are going to be working during the summer school month of June.
Entertain a motion to approve.
I move to approve the food service summer hires.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Smith. Any discussion, board members? Members of administration, any discussion, further explanation? Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Bering?
Yes, by the way, the funding for that is 510,
Yes,
which is.
Food service.
Food service.
Yeah. Item C, discussion action on the approval or request to rescind a certified retirement. Ms. Samaniego?
As presented, Mr. Hector Cañas submitted his retirement letter last month, and you all approved it. So he is rescinding, so
She?
he,
Oh, I'm sorry.
yes, he is rescinding his retirement letter that was already approved on March the 7th.
Recommendation of the board is to do that?
Yes.
Entertain a motion to
I
approve.
move to approve the request to rescind certified retirement.
Is there a second?
Second.
By Mr. Ramos. Members of the board, any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Bering?
Yes. Item D, discussion action on the approval of the bus driver job description revision. Ms. Samaniego?
Okay. As we've discussed and informed you on my governing board updates, we are under a crisis moment regarding our bus driver shortage. And so for that reason, which I will discuss in the next item, I have revised the current job description so that if approved on the next item, we can hire our new bus drivers under the new job description, which you have before you. So anything that I changed is in red. What we hope to be able to do with the job description is hire bus drivers / custodians. So a bus driver currently doesn't drive a bus for 8 hours of their day. So we want to ensure that whoever we hire goes under this job description. And as you can see, the main duties will be the bus driving, obviously. And during non-bus driving times, as you see, performing duties and responsibilities of the approved custodian job description when not assigned to a bus route or trip, and performing other duties as assigned. So it's just the major changes on the bus driver.
Well, I think
Job
it
description.
warrants a little bit more discussion. You may want to talk about the problems.
Okay.
Because I think it's important, especially if we're going to look at revising the salary
Yes.
and the duties and responsibilities.
So our current situation is one that has been coming little by little. But just in this school year alone, since October, we have lost 5 bus drivers. So we have basically 5 bus driver positions. And they've left because of retirement, resigning, going on to other jobs that pay more money around the county, which require some type of a CDL certification, which our bus drivers have. So since October, these people have not left all at once, but they've slowly left over the course of the last few months. So in these last 3 months, we've been hit hard. Currently, our status is 2.5 bus drivers left for the district. We have an additional one that is still just getting the certification process. So 2.5 to drive our buses for out of town and any in-town transportation of our students. So obviously with 2.5 bus drivers, there is no way we can accomplish all the duties and responsibilities that we have to make sure that, one, our kids are brought to school on a daily basis and returned home, and then to transport our students for whether it be athletics or field trips. So what we had to do, Mrs. Cox and I and Mr. Soto met with Mr. Rodriguez and looked at all the trips that we had coming in the last months. And the end of the year has a lot of trips, not so much for athletics, but for end of the year field trips for all of our schools. So in looking at all of that, we were forced to cancel many of our elementary and some of our middle school trips that required out-of-town travel. Because with 2.5 bus drivers, if we send those two out of town, then we don't have anybody left to transport our students. And so Mr. Rodriguez has been driving vans. Our van drivers have been transporting, utilizing our vans. We've run into, running late. I'll give you an example. Yesterday or the day before yesterday at RBMS, our bus was running about an hour late. And so Mr. Rodriguez himself and a few of the other gentlemen had to transport the kids in vans. And so, getting them home an hour late is not okay. And so we are making do with whatever we have and doing the best that we can with the situation that we are in. So after discussing and having several conversations between the three of us and meeting with Mr. Rodriguez, we have to do something with our salary. We've had these vacancies open. As soon as somebody leaves, we've had it open. There's just been no interest. And the interest is really due, we believe, to the not having a competitive salary with other CDL driver positions that occur and exist in the state or even in our county. And so in order to have a more competitive salary and be able to attract people, we have to do something with our salary. And so we extensively thought of our situation, what could be feasible, what could we do, what could be afforded by our M&O budget to attract more candidates. So in the next item, we are proposing a new salary increase with a different contract than their current bus drivers have. All of our drivers right now are 12-month employees, and they have been 12-month employees ever since I've known. There's very few districts that have 12-month bus drivers because they don't drive, most of them don't drive, all of them in June and July. Most school districts do have summer school, so that requires some bus drivers. So we had been talking about it for a few years of possibly changing, anybody that left would be hired as an 11-month. So this is a perfect time to do it with the number of vacancies that we have. So the proposed job description would be for a bus driver being hired under an 11-month contract, and we'll be discussing the proposed salary. If we don't do something, and let's say even with raising the salary, if the governing board approves it, and if we still don't have any candidates, we're going to be in a very emergency situation come around August. And I know many districts that and my colleagues, superintendent colleagues that I've worked with, have gone to contract out their transportation services because of the very same situation and the nightmares of transportation brings to a school district. And that is, one, a very costly process. Employees are now hired by the contracting company. The fleet stays owned by the district, but is now being operated and utilized by the company. So it's a long, extensive RFP process if we find ourselves in that need because we can't find bus drivers. So we have a huge interest. We did a very good job of promoting it in social media, the job fairs that Mrs. Cox created. So we have now an interest. I think, I don't know how many
7 or
people
8
have
people.
applied. And so hopefully with this new salary increase and an 11-month contract, we can really do justice and hire qualified drivers.
Duties and responsibilities over and above driving the bus, the board needs to know why you streamline the job
Yes.
description.
So, as I said, a bus driver doesn't drive a bus for 8 hours. So they have their routine. They have the routine inspection in the morning, which happens before the bus. It's called pre-trip inspection. And then they have a post-trip inspection that they do as well. In addition to, there's, not that it happens every day, but, washing of buses, checking their tires, routine inspections and things like that. So there's a period of time that our current bus drivers have that right now they're doing other duties as assigned. So they may be helping out in our warehouse, delivery, distribution of materials, inventory. They are helping out at the schools with, prior to us even having school security, they were going out to the schools, the current ones that we had, and had assigned schools that they would normally go to. So what we're doing with this one to make sure that our bus drivers who are hired under our full-time status of 8 hours, they have their bus driving duties and responsibilities for X number of hours, and then they will have an assigned school site to go to for custodial duties. And what we foresee right now is the high school expansion. Not that it'll be built and completed in 2050, because we won't be here. We want to see that school done. That is a big facility. And with the number of custodians that they have at Douglas High School, we do have already projected and encumbered 2 extra positions for next year. But that is going to need a lot of support. So this will allow us to have specific assigned duties, custodial duties at school sites, whether it's Douglas High School or another school, that they will have to report to, sign in and sign out, then go back to their bus driving responsibilities so that they could be employed during those 8 hours.
Board members, I think it's important because there's going to be a little bit of controversy, as always, anytime you focus on one of the parts of the workforce and you look at it for an increase. But this has been a problem forever, and the fact that it's the specialty of driving the bus, they have to have the CDL. And fortunately, the district is able to afford that to them. It's very expensive to get, and it's an extensive training. However, now they're going to have designated duties, and this is going to merit and warrant the fact that they will be getting this increase. But the most important thing is the retention of those drivers. And I can't tell you, so that you know, Mr. Rodriguez is actually the supervisor. He's driving a bus himself now. And to show you the dire circumstances they're in now, is that down to 2.5 bus drivers for this huge district. So we have to address this, not only administratively, but as the board, so that we have a grave responsibility to making sure that we get those kids to school. And if we've only got 2.5 bus drivers, and that's counting the supervisor out there, we're in trouble. So I'll open that up for conversation regarding any aspect of that. The fact that they're going to actually now be assigned when they come back in would merit the increase. Not only that, but because of the importance of the job, and because of the transportation of students. Mr. Lindeman.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Go ahead, my dear.
I had one of the bus drivers approach me and tell me, they says, I love my job, but we just don't drive buses, We have to do the inspections, we have to wash them, and after that, we still have to go do other duties in the warehouse, in other areas wherever they need us. He said, I love my job. There's a lot of bus drivers that they're fed up, they don't want to do it, and they're going to quit. I was told this about a month ago, and I said, yeah, well, okay, and evidently it has happened. So it is the situation we have to take care of and do something about it. Without bus drivers, then we're really going to be in bad shape. I just wanted to mention it.
Mr. Lindeman.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to have a couple of clarifications. Does the district provide the CDL training now and pay for it?
Not specifically the CDL. Somebody comes with already a CDL, license, but the district has to give them the training to become a bus driver. So it's a separate, different certification that they have to get. So the district provides that training in order for them to get that bus driving classification. So then they go and take the test, behind the wheel test, and that's when they receive their bus driver certification. So that's what we're referring to with the CDL.
I think I remember that we've talked about this before, and does the college offer that at all?
I think they started
do.
offering that, but it's costly. I don't have the amount of the cost of the class, but that's just for get a regular CDL. So if I'm a regular
Truck
person,
driver, let's say.
I just want to become a truck driver, I go take the class and they give me the CDL. But in order for me to drive a school bus, then I have to take the Class B CDL license where we provide here.
Okay. Is there any way that maybe the district can cover some of that cost for a prospective employee as a perk for coming to work?
To pay for the CDL.
Just the CDL?
Yeah.
Class and,
I mean, we haven't talked about that specifically.
The problem with that is that it's expensive. And if we realize that expense and the person stays with us 6 months, we're out. So
Yeah.
to me,
or 2 months, because they may get it.
yeah,
And
We
then
may
go
pay for
somewhere
it,
else.
but they may not pass the Class B classification.
Right.
So then we're not gonna keep them if they're not able to drive, you know what I'm saying? So that would be a,
I had one other question, if I may. I think this has to do with the next item, but I'll just ask it. Do the existing bus drivers now get the increase in salary?
Correct.
they will be adjusted, yes.
Correct.
Okay.
We're moving
Yes,
categories,
of course.
so they'll get that difference.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Smith?
I have several questions. I wanted to start out, I guess, with, you're having a hard time in, finding bus drivers to come in there. And have you looked, or, why did you choose to modify the job description where you're adding duties to it instead of just, keeping the job description the same and increasing the salary? What was the advantage over adding the
So
duties to it?
The only difference, I mean, adding the custodial duties per se is really not the reason for choosing to increase the salary. It's just that once you have a job description that is a little bit more clear in expectations, with the extra duties as assigned, you kind of have that leverage, for, let's say, somebody that is not showing up to the school that they need it to be, and said, okay, well, I wasn't hired to do this. That, it's just streamlines and makes it more clear. The current bus driver position did have, performing other duties as assigned. Yes.
I always hated that.
Yes, exactly, yes.
Okay, and.
So that's the only reason. They already do, like I said, a lot of them right now are doing other duties, as Mr. Ramos explained.
I had some questions about the training you
Mm-hmm.
were talking about for the CDL for the bus drivers, and it keeps getting mentioned that it's expensive training. Where does that training come from, and
It happens here. It happens at the transportation department. So we have one of the bus drivers is a certified trainer. So he's the one. So once somebody's hired, let's just say I show up with my CDL, I get hired, but I'm still not ready to drive the bus because I haven't got that certification. So in the meantime, I'm taking this training with the trainer, and then once I pass and I have my Class B bus driver, then I'll get to drive the bus.
okay?
So there's
So
pros
where
and
does
cons.
if the trainer is here already working for us, where does the expense come in on training additional people?
Yes, so what's expensive, just to clarify, the expensive piece of it is actually the CDL class and certification that an employee needs to get, and that happens like in Tucson. They have to go to Tucson, they have to get these courses and take the test. I don't know exactly, I don't have the amount of what a CDL license cost, but it's the person who wants to be CDL certified has to acquire that expense.
Has ADOT changed how they do it down here?
I don't know. I know it's like an ADOT, but I know a lot of people that I've talked to, they go to Tucson to get that CDL.
And I think now Cochise College
Cochise
is
College
offering
is now
it.
starting.
I started
A
saying
class.
because years past, well before I retired, when we had an increase, we actually, because we were needing buses for transporting up to Tucson, aliens up there, and we had a number of agents. They volunteered. We sent them through, what we did was basically what we had. We had somebody on staff who was a CDL trainer, run them through a little class at the thing, took them over here to the one right here by us. They got their CDL once they, could demonstrate that they knew the skills on how to do the walk-arounds, checking the tires, doing all this other stuff, would pass the driving test, and we're good to go. And the expense really was pretty minimal. I mean, yeah, there was obviously the state fees for getting it, but
Yes, and it's, I think
Excuse
that's,
me a minute. Do we have a motion on the floor?
No.
not yet.
Let's get a motion on the floor. Mr. Lindeman to approve, and then we'll
I move to approve the bus driver job description.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
By Mr. Smith. All right, go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't
Yes,
want to
and so
interrupt.
exactly that's where the cost is, just the license itself, but the other piece of it, we're taking care of here. So, there is not really it's the expense because we already are paying that person, you know, as a trainer. And that's the next piece of it, that classification as a bus driver.
Right,
Yes,
and we had
yes.
to get the same thing. You had to
Yes.
get the because that's what it was. The agents were
Yes.
driving the
Yes.
buses with aliens.
Yes.
You had, you know, learn all the good stuff, stopping at the railroad tracks and all
Yes.
that. You know?
So
Yeah,
a lot of them will come with that. We've had a lot of interest right now, and I believe from what Mr. Rodriguez said, it's a lot of truck drivers who no longer also want to be away from their families, you know, expose themselves to a lot of danger in our highways and across the nation. So there's been that interest. Those, if they already have the CDL certification, they're not going to have a, you know, major cost on their part. They get hired, we'll have to do the training ourselves, and if they pass that, our training, they'll get that Class B certification.
right. Next thing I wanted to ask, has there been any program or anything asking to, I know the majority of the bus driving obviously is picking the kids up, getting them home from school in the mornings and that kind of stuff, and that's one thing. But for the trips that we have, you know, teachers, there are some that regularly you have field trips, coaches for athletics. Has there been any program to see if any of those are interested to try and get CDLs? You know, that again, we could help doing it. That would alleviate some of the strain off of the bus drivers if coaches and teachers that were running the classes would be able to drive their own buses.
So I'm glad you asked that question. It is something that we discussed. So we don't have something, you know, we haven't talked to coaches in the past, but we did discuss with Mr. Rodriguez because in the past, there was one coach that had the CDL bus driving certification. So whenever his team traveled, he would drive the bus. So as an option, you know, we did have that discussion and maybe bringing that to some employees or coaches and that could acquire that CDL certification. But we used to have one coach that had the CDL certification. So it's something we're going to discuss and probably bring to a table just for discussion and see where we go from there.
One of the drawbacks of having the coaches
Yes.
drive, unless you've got a major staff, like it's a major sport, like football, basketball,
The
and baseball,
supervision.
you have assistants. But if you don't, and he's driving the bus, then discipline is always gonna be paramount in the consideration. If you got the coach driving that bus,
Yeah, you'll need
you're
an
gonna
additional
you could have
staff.
some problems. And that's been seen over the years. So that's just something that they need to consider.
Sure.
Unless they get into the vans, you know, when they
Yes,
start.
a
when
lot
they
of the
start
coaches drive the vans already. And so that already happens. But buses, they would need to have that
Yeah.
CDL.
I used to drive the vans.
Yeah.
I've seen, the problem with the vans is sometimes they need more vans than they've got
Yes.
coaches or any
Yeah.
this other
Yes.
stuff, you know. I've seen at the high school some of the sports where they basically had to overload the vans to be able to get them to locations.
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman?
I was a truck driver in the 70s.
Do you have a CDL?
We didn't need it back in those days. We would just get in the truck and take off.
Any further discussion regarding that? Absolutely, the need's there, and we need to do something with them. And if we had them just coming in hourly, like they did in the old days, it wouldn't be attractive to them at all. That's why you've got to extend it. But this is going to be more direct as to what the duties and responsibilities are, and they will definitely be assigned. And it kind of meshes with the new addition up there that you get two for one. All right, we have a motion on the floor.
Yes, sir.
Any further discussion, members of the board? Administration? Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Burry?
Yes.
We're on
F.
E.
Oh, I'm sorry. Discussion action on the approval of the salary increase and revived work schedule for bus drivers. Ms. Samaniego.
Okay. As I explained earlier, the proposal, based on all the information I just provided, would be to increase the salary to $19.96 as a starting pay with an 11-month contract. New bus drivers would no longer be hired under the 12-month contract. They would be able to still drive during summer school, June month. And with the, under the new job description as approved, we feel that this is a competitive salary that will definitely show some interest and allow us to retain some bus drivers. And that will be reflected in the new salary schedules that will be presented as well.
Motion on the floor to get the discussion.
I move to approve the salary increase and revised work schedule.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Ramos. Members of the board, any question?
Yeah, I have a quick one. Of course, if you hire an 8-hour full-time employee, that's full-time benefits.
Yes,
Correct.
yes.
During the workday, I can envision where somebody comes off the route and then is assigned to a school and then gets busy and then has to travel back to do the pickup route. That's going to be quite a day. I don't know if, it might not be only 8 hours.
No, it will only be 8 hours. They won't, unless there is, extensive driving that would probably be an out of town. If it's an out of town, then that's all they're doing, because they're not going to be here. So we can guarantee you, even the work that is being done right now with the current bus drivers that are assisting in the warehouse or that may have to go to another school, they get back in time to do their afternoon pickup, delivery home, and they go home. So that's not going to be a problem.
Any unforeseen weather circumstances?
Yeah,
or
of course.
Like, is this going to be a comp time type of thing, or is there going to be an overtime allowance?
It can be both. I think what we're doing currently is both, depending, you give the option to the employee, believe it or not, sometimes they just want comp time instead of paying overtime. But this mostly applies to the out-of-town drivers, because yes, they do work during the day, but then there's a trip to Tucson that they have to go. So then that we address here. Again, sometimes comp time, sometimes overtime.
Okay.
It's going to
Thank
continue
you.
that way.
Any further discussion regarding that?
Just the employee that talked to me wasn't concerned with the extra duties. It was the pay.
The pay, yeah. So this will be,
He says, but I love my job, just why I'm staying on. He says he likes it, so.
And it was one of the, if I may add, it was one of the concerns that we talked to them about, is the pay. And these people coming in are going to make almost what we're making now. And I said, no, we're moving you along with
the new
the
salary
new
schedule.
ones. The new ones most of them are not going to get experience because, again, they're coming from a truck driving field, not bus driving. So all of those things were, talked to them, discussed, and again, it's going to impact us financially, yes, of course, but the fact that all of these new ones are going to be only 11 months, it's not going to be a huge impact. And again, we're just making them 11 months. The existing ones, of course, they're 12 months. Once they leave, then we bring them back as only 11 months.
a replacement.
A replacement.
One final question, if I may. How many bus drivers will it take then to fulfill our obligations?
Well, it's
Right
the
now, we have
five.
1, 2,
Five,
Five?
it's 5 positions that we have.
Okay.
correct.
Any further discussion, members of the board?
No.
Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Berry?
Yes, and also, there's always the factor in there, and the administration is well aware of it, that when we single out any entity or portion of employment in the district, that there's always going to be some questions as to the worthiness of it and the comparisons and those kinds of things. But I've always told the administration that they have to, and then when they bring it to the board, we have to decide based on their recommendation, looking at what the necessities are of the district. And this one is urgent because they're having problems right now getting these kids to school. And did you say earlier that one of them was running an hour late?
Yeah, at Rayburn, and Mr. Rodriguez had to go and pick some up because, again, we had one bus driver out, left 1.5 here. And they were running behind an hour, picking kids up after school.
And this isn't something that we can just discretionally look at and say, well, we
We'll
don't
deal
need
with
to do
it
that or
later,
not. We need to get those kids to school. So they've kind of got some leverage on us there. So hopefully this will help you and that'll solve the problem. All right? Moving on to item F. A discussion action on the approval of the Douglas Unified School District Number 27 certified, classified, and extra duty salary schedules for 2023, 2024. Ms. Samaniego.
So these extra duty salary schedules here, it's just our yearly schedule with all the increases and things that you've already approved for the certified teachers, for the classified 75 cent increase. And so this is what we will go by now as we hire anybody coming into our district under the certified salary schedule, the classified salary schedule, and the extra duty salary schedule. And all the numbers have been ran, and so what we did on the classified, the certified salary schedule is you increased the base pay by 850.
Correct. It was part of the decision on the salary committee that instead of just coming out with random increases for the placement, is just, okay, so we kind of created a formula. So whatever percentage the board approves every year,
For raises.
we're gonna increase only half of that on the placement for new employees coming in, new hires. So right now it's 862.50, but then it was decided, okay, just round it out and go with 850. So this current year we have the starting pay for teachers is 34,500. The new recommendation for next year is 35,350. So we added the 850 to all of those categories, to all of those grades for the certified. For the classified, like Mrs. Samaniego said, everybody got 75 cents, but the increase on the classified salary schedule is only 55 cents. Again, the recommendation or the projection from the state is that the minimum wage in January is going to go up to $14.40. So that's what I'm basing that starting for us, which is only for classified substitutes. Our lowest employee hire here is going to start at $14.65. Okay, so only if you're a sub, like a security sub, a custodian sub, those are the only ones that are going to get the minimum wage, which is $14.40. But everybody else higher is going to start at $14.65. That's category 2. So again, everybody got a raise of 75 cents, existing employees, but the new ones, the new salary schedule only reflects 55 cents, just to keep that difference on people with 1 year than on the new ones being higher. The other salary schedule that we are presenting is the extra duty. The only change there is on the middle schools. This current year, there was a mistake where head coaches and assistant coaches is the same amount, 750. So I'm just changing that for middle schools. Yes, for middle schools. So now the sponsors and head coaches are going to be 1,000, and the assistant coaches are going to stay at 750. And I know that the board is interested in have a work study session on the extra duty for athletic coaches and all that. So that's the main reason we haven't changed it at this point. We're proposing just the existing one. If the board then decides to make changes to that salary schedule, then after that work study session, then we can entertain that.
The board is interested in having a special meeting on looking at,
No.
is that right, board members?
Not a special meeting, but a
I'm
work study.
just kidding. You
A
said,
work study session to discuss our overall athletic program.
oh, I thought he
at
said
DUSD.
the board is interested in doing that. I'm sorry, I apologize if I misunderstood
fine.
you. I thought you said the board is interested in.
And I did say that the board
One board member.
wants to have a work study session.
Oh, okay.
On
All right, well, that's fine.
that.
I mean, absolutely. All right, let's get a motion on the floor.
I move to approve the certified classified extra duty salary schedules.
Is there a second?
Caesar, I'm sorry.
No, go
I
ahead.
have a question. Are substitutes on this, teacher substitutes? I don't see that. Or is that a different category?
No, that's a separate, that's
It's
different.
within- Yeah, within the policy of substitute salary, so
And that was changed, I don't remember exactly when, but I believe it was
2
January.
years, 2 years. 2 years ago. About a year?
No, it
maybe a
was
year.
less than that. When we increased that, if you remember, it was
About a year ago?
85, 95, and 105. Now we're at 105, 115, and 125. Those are the substitute rates that we have right now. And typically that changes when the minimum wage increases and just making sure that they're, at least
Equal.
making minimum wage.
Well,
But that
I-
one, it should be enough to cover this one also.
Okay. I'm just wondering if next year, we're not going to run into a shortage of substitutes like we're doing this year with bus drivers.
Right.
I mean, it's a vicious cycle.
Right, right. But again, once we get to that point, then we'll come back again and recommend
increase.
an increase to the substitute rates, certified substitute rate.
We have a motion on the floor, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Let me ask you, regarding all of these extra duty pays and the salary schedules. Do you people, when you discuss with the employees, let's say the classified, do you recognize them at a different level or as a different category completely when it comes to your budget and your available funds that you have to recommend to the board for salaries? Example, if you had an organization talking to your employees saying, if you let us represent you, we will definitely get you more money for work boots, work clothes, hats, better working conditions. Do you single them out and give anybody any more special attention than you would anybody else? And the reason I ask you is because I know that recently in the district, there was a lot of conversation going around, and I was told by employees that that certain representatives were going around telling them that if they were to enlist and join, that they would definitely have a louder voice with the administration because of who they were representing them in whatever the different aspect or category was regarding their special interests like wages and working conditions. So the point being that when you meet, and is the process, the normal process, when you meet with our employees and they discuss benefits, salaries, and everything, anything ancillary to that, you don't give one or the other any preferential recognition or treatment. In other words, if you've got representatives out there talking to the workforce and telling them that we can do much better for you than would be what would be expected as normalcy as far as what this other organization or the organization does. The point I'm going to make is this, is that if the district were to allow people in the work areas, which you shouldn't do anyway without permission from the staff, and they're given information or propositions that they can do much better for them, do you look at them differently than you do the total workforce as far as the monies that are available, as far as classified, certified, and anybody else that might be involved? Food service, maintenance, custodial. So I just want to make that clear here publicly, that when they are sold a bill of goods and told that if they were to participate in a certain program, that they would ensure that the district would give them more benefits and recognition because those people represented them. And I want to make sure, and I want to make clear.
Yes,
that-
so let me answer that. First and foremost, we do not treat any individual job category or position distinctly from others. We just went through the process of taking a group of employees for a very specific situation that I brought to the board, which was our bus driver situation. That was unique. That was because of the situation we're in. we would normally do that for any job category. And so benefits, salaries, better working conditions, if they are addressed with us through the employee, we definitely take a look at everything. And so we don't single anybody out, or if you are part of an organization or not, does not mean you will get, better salaries or better working conditions. What we normally do in our process is through our DA organization is we have collaboration meetings. And so through those collaboration meetings, we have conversations, we discuss about, issues, and it doesn't have to be just salaries. And so either an employee is a member of the organization or they're not. We treat everything different, and ultimately, as you all know, any salary increase has to be board approved. So if I were to come with an outrageous salary increase or specific benefits, let's say to the IT department and Marcos, that couldn't be made a promise to Marcos's department, because ultimately I'm not going to bring anything to the table that I don't foresee passing, number one. So you all have the ultimate say-so. If you feel that whatever my proposal is and the justification for it and the need, you will approve it. If not, it may not be approved. So that is for every single employee in the district. And so will we take specific situations? If needed. We brought something to the board where we needed to approve an extra $2,000 expenditure to our security for the vest that we needed for immediate identification. Again, that was something specific. It wasn't something that we were treating the security more special than another group of people. But it is the unique situation in, you mentioned boots or work gear. So let's say our maintenance department, that they needed, some working equipment for our plumbers, our electricians, and we hadn't budgeted for it, but we needed to make an immediate purchase, we'd bring that to the board. So we treat everybody equal. We have conversations, but ultimately, everything that this board has done for our employees regarding salaries, working conditions, has been approved by you, not by something he promises or I promise or our organization promise. We try to meet halfways and do what is best in terms of the district, the students, and what is within means of our budget.
I think the point I'm trying to make is that we have salary schedules, and they I'm not going to use the word negotiate, they discuss and they meet and confer, let's just say that, with our employees. And our employees are well aware, I think, in the present time, that the administration supports this board in doing everything we can do financially and benefit-wise, always. And I think that's been our posture for the last, at least the last 8 years, that we've done everything unilaterally, right? And to me, although the conversations the administration has, this board has been very amenable and very acceptable to everything we can do for our employees. So it would be a post hoc fallacy for somebody to say, we can do much more for you if you are part of us, because we're going to get a lot more independently than that board's going to give you anyway. Well, again, to those people making those kind of pronouncements, that's post hoc fallacy. It's going to happen anyway, right? Because the board's going to do everything we can. So I just want to make it clear that if they come to us with a recommendation, they're going to meet with a very, very agreeable and receptive board as far as working conditions and benefits for employees in the district with this board. I mean, that's been proven over the years. But to imply to some of our employees that they can do much better for them, and of course that's part of the selling and the support trying to garner from employees. I know I'm being very circumvent about the way I'm saying this, but I just want to make it publicly known that Is it good to belong to professional organizations? Absolutely. Is it good to have them support and purport benefits and issues for you with them? Absolutely. But when you misrepresent, and I want to make sure this administration is perfectly clear that this board has no problem with our employees locally interacting with professional organizations, and that they come to the administration and then subsequently come to the board for what their likes and dislikes aren't, and especially their benefits. However, I think that this board has learned, and I know I was privy to it, that and the administration knows now that when there's an abuse of that, when you have outsiders, and notwithstanding the locals, coming in and going with unauthorized to our employees, making all kinds of pronouncements about what they can do and what they're not getting and what they can do for them without the auspices of this board or the administration knowing it, that I think it's a breach with the mutual and the great understanding we have with our employees already. This board unilaterally, along with the administration, works towards better benefits. We do that. And for people, outsiders, to come in unauthorized onto district grounds and to purport that things aren't going good for them and that it is a breach. And I think the administration is fully aware of what happened. And I think that they need to be sensitive now, especially that you can't have people talking to your employees implying that they're not getting the best possible when the administration themselves is cooperating fully with them, and that they're coming to this board and they're doing everything in their power, knowing what the budget says, what the resources and revenues are, to do the best they can for employees. But for them to be told and to find out that things are going on, are being realized in the district by unauthorized people with the propaganda and making them look bad and this board look bad is totally unacceptable. And I want to say that they know what I'm talking about. And that recently happened. And I think, again, it's totally unacceptable that it be done without their knowledge, especially when they are fully supportive of our professional organizations and give them all the latitude that they need to be able to effectively do whatever they need to do professionally, not only on their job, but with the benefits that are afforded them by this district. Mr. Lindeman, did you want to say something?
No.
All right. They know what I'm talking about, and I'm not and I'm not being circumvent. I'm specifically talking about an event that took place this week in the district where those people were on campuses and they were in different departments unauthorized. And I think that our local education association needs to know about that, and they need to know that we fully support them ostensibly by what we do, but that we're not going to be intimidated or in any way by saying that that board can do better for you by outsiders, and that's what it was. So enough said about that now. Ms. Amaniego, you have a nice day. Mr. Soto, you have a nice day. And I think you understand you know fully what I'm talking about. Do we have a motion on the floor?
Yes, sir.
Roll call.
Mr.
And not about what I said about the item on the agenda.
Yes. Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Burry?
Yes. Item, where are we?
3.
The end.
The end.
Oh,
Adjournment.
Adjournment.
entertain a motion to
I
adjourn.
move to adjourn.
Mr. Lindeman,
Second.
Mr. Ramos, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.